We've all visualized an ideal iteration of the perfect smartphone, one with a completely bezel-less display, a great set of cameras, and a UI that just feels like it's been specially made for you. And in a lot of ways, that was supposed to be my experience with my first ever Pixel, the Pixel 6 Pro. But visualization is just a figment of your imagination, and the downside of having a rich imagination is that it can be hard at times to stay grounded in reality. Hey everyone, this is Dr. Prani. Welcome to my first ever YouTube video. This is my long-term review of the Google Pixel 6 Pro. When the Pixel 6 series was originally launched, it caused quite the stir because it was the first time in years that Google actually got back to its roots and created a phone that embodied the company's core principles. It was a refresher from what we'd seen in the past, from the two-tone finishes to the single-tone glossy design and a Daft Punk-shaped camera layout that made it look distinctly Google. Alongside was the launch of Material You. This was Android 12 revolving around a design philosophy focused on creating a personalized and expressive user experience through the use of color, typography, and some unique design choices. And I think Google themselves described it the best. What if, instead of form following function, it followed feeling? Just think about it. A smartphone that reflects your personality can be a lot more enjoyable and satisfying to use, as it allows you to personalize your device in a way that reflects your interest and style. This makes it feel like more of a reflection of who you are rather than just a generic mass-produced piece of technology. From the home screen and charging animations that resemble a smooth breath-like pulse to the minimizing of apps that are almost reminiscent of a Pokemon trying to return to its Pokeball, these are just some aspects that make this phone feel alive. Google tried to up their game by bringing the smart in the smartphone, and it was visible in nearly every facet of this device. It came with some great additions such as the updated Recents menu that allows you to quickly select images and text right from the preview of the app, or give you the ability to answer decline your calls or snooze alarms just by using your voice. Another nifty add-on was the revamped Recorder app, which provides you with a nearly perfect transcription of your recordings, which has been helpful for me while I was attending lectures, further improved with the addition of speech labels. Though the feature I found myself using quite a lot is quite subtle and is the Now Playing feature. The best part is that it updates its database based on the most popular songs in your region and runs offline, which pretty much means it's game over. Shazam! We all know Google has always attempted to make significant strides in improving the capabilities of its camera system, and the 6 series was no exception to that. With Google making its own processor with Tensor, this was the first time that Google tried to create a perfect synergy between their hardware and software, and for the most part, it was clearly a one-of-a-kind system. The photo shot looked great in any given scenario. I would say though at times they can look slightly overprocessed, and if I were to make a guess, it's probably because Google's algorithm has not been yet optimized for the newer sensors. Another interesting aspect of this camera system in my opinion is Google's real tone. Trust me, I've used a lot of Samsungs in the past and they always tend to add some sort of a beauty effect on my face, despite filters being turned off. With the Pixels on the other hand, portrait shots provide an accurate representation of what someone's face really looks like. Videos, one of the more prominently lacking areas of the Pixels in the past, was as well significantly improved on the 6 series, and this video's A-roll is a testament to that, completely shot on the Pixel 6 Pro. One of my absolute favorite aspects of using the cameras on the Pixels are the various modes that add a tad bit of fun to my experience. My personal favorite being the action pan motion mode. The way it works is that you get the phone focused on a moving subject, and the post-processing adds a creative directional blur to the shot, and the photos shot are surprisingly worthy of being in a publication. Another great feature was the addition of cinematic mode. Separate from the cinematic blur feature later introduced on the Pixel 7 series, this mode allows you to take some smooth B-roll shots that almost resemble the likes of a slider or a gimbal. Trust me when I say this, from my experience using this device, I've never felt the urge to reach out for my phone to take as many photos or videos of my observations as often as I have recently with the Pixel. Though I'd say one of the things I was expecting to see with Google's own chip on board was smoother lens switching and less shutter lag. A lot of the times in scenes with adverse lighting conditions, the phone tries to think whether the lens can be used or should it just digitally zoom in with the main sensor. Unless it's clearly daytime, it takes about a second or two to figure this out, and if you're trying to take photos of fast-moving objects, it can be quite annoying to deal with. And upon the reviews I've seen of the Pixel 7, it's still not quite there yet. As great of a highlight the cameras are on the Pixel, talking about the other aspects of this device, well, that's just about where my fair share of enjoyment with this device started to taper off.
I was so close to throwing this thing out of the window, but I had to make a video for it, so, I didn't. But, you know what I did? I actually bought myself an iPhone.
My Pixel 6 Pro has slowly gotten so buggy since launch in October that I can no longer recommend it at $900. Combined with the latest Flash software update, it's just been a bad experience. This is something Google has had a long time to hear complaints about, and I wonder, do they hear the complaints? I'm sure they do.
They do, definitely.
What do they actually do about it? Are they able to, push updates, prioritize software?
Yeah.
Those sorts of things are a question mark. Here we are in April, so it's been a couple months and a couple successful software updates later. While it's better than it was, it's still not enough to change my opinion on it.
A single product may not define a brand, but it certainly reflects upon it. You see, Google's marketing campaign for this device was really good, to the point where it made us all feel that Google had finally cracked the code and was back making the authentic Google phone. But the danger of being swayed by hype is that one may be led to overlook a product's inherent flaws or limitations and so be disappointed with the end result. The reason why I wanted to share my experience using this device even after over a year since its launch is because Google is known to heavily discount their phones and often bundle them with various carrier providers. And with these phones getting 2 more years of Android updates, many people still may be tempted to get them, even if it's been a while since their launch. And while there's nothing wrong with that, it's just that I've gone through that process and there are definitely a few aspects of this phone that have reshaped my thoughts on it. I got my device in April last year, as this was around the time that Google had released a massive patch addressing a lot of bug fixes for the 6 series. But even after a year since this phone's launch, if I were to sum up my experience in one phrase, it would probably be a roller coaster of events. Starting off with the bugs, and let me preface this by saying that my experience is completely based on the stable release of Android 13 on the latest patch update. I've had problems using the recents menu while multitasking, where for some reason all app previews just appear to be dark silhouettes. I've been unable to control my devices using the Google Home pop-out window on the lock screen as it keeps crashing. And as someone who used to charge his earbuds using his phone as a reverse wireless charging pad plugged in at night, I've never been able to use that feature on the Pixel as it rarely works as intended. And even after registering my fingerprint multiple times and toggling the increased touch sensitivity option in the device settings, the fingerprint sensor on this device is abysmally slow and inconsistent. For a technology that has been an industry standard for nearly 4 years at this point, mid-range devices put the Pixel to shame. But the worst bug that has annoyed the life out of me while using this device is what some may say is the fundamental purpose of using a phone ever since its inception: calling. There have been random instances where I tried to call or be on the receiving end accepting the call and the device would just power off. Now this cycle would happen 2 more times before the device decides to fix itself on the 3rd reboot. It's quite annoying to deal with for me, as people on the other end probably think I'm ghosting them, and if it's family, well, they'd worry for me. Trust me, I could perhaps go on and on talking about every minor bug I faced, but the fact is these inconsistencies have existed for more than over a year at this point, and some have even made their way over to the newer models. And while yes, Google is committed in providing monthly patch updates to fix these issues, from my experience, each patch update would just result in a lot more bug reports rather than bug fixes. It is quite clear at this point that Google's motto of hardware problems, software solutions is definitely what was limiting them from fixing any of these issues that resulted from poor quality control of their hardware in the first place. We all know tech can be prone to bugs and technical issues, and that there's probably a slim margin of people who end up getting a buggy unit, though in the case of the Pixels, it just seems like the proportion of users getting such devices with issues are relatively higher compared to phones from other manufacturers. The other aspect that further diminished my experience using this device is region exclusivity. Apart from its warranty programs being supported in limited regions, which I still find strange after over 7 iterations of their most popular device, features like Direct My Call, call screening, and car crash detection are just locked to some regions like the US. This is sort of understandable, as it would take a lot of time for Google to build the required infrastructure in various countries, barring the varying degrees of laws they may have. Though as a reviewer, it also makes it really difficult for me to recommend this device to anyone, due to the amount of inconsistencies in the user experience across various regions. Honestly, I've never been less confident using a device prior to my experience with the Pixel. Even when the device works as intended, due to my performed assumptions, it always feels like there's going to be a bug showing up right around the corner. I think using a smartphone should be a refined and polished experience, whereby the device does exactly what you ask it to do, and not waste your time looking for ways to fix the various problems that you face. After all, these devices are made for the masses, and while purchasing a device, it is important for it to stand up to the standards set by the manufacturer, and not make us feel like it's a grand lottery, whereby we have a lower chance of getting a device that does exactly what it's supposed to do, which makes it hard for me to be able to recommend the Pixel 6 Pro. That being said, I'm hopeful about the Pixel 7 series, as it is definitely an improvement over its predecessors. If you're currently using the Pixel 6, it might be worth considering a trade-in. But if you're a first-time Pixel buyer weighing in all options, I suggest waiting until later this year for the release of the Pixel 8. I think that the third generation of Tensor might just deliver on some of the pitfalls faced by its predecessors. That being said, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.